So, Joe, obviously the national championship game is tomorrow, and a lot of comments have been coming out from all the coordinators, but we got to start off with this. Al Golden came out, the defensive coordinator of Notre Dame, and I'm just quoting a very similar line here that he said. So it's not direct, but I'm just paraphrasing from most things that he said and what we saw. Al Golden was asked about what they're going to do defensively, and he says, we are going to do what we do, when he was asked about how he covers these wide receivers. So basically he's admitting that, hey, man, we're going to go man-to-man coverage, and we're going to continue to be us. Joe, it's two things about this that I got to ask you. Number one, is he right in saying that? And number two, should he have tipped his hand here? Like, I guess, like, I understand what he's saying, and you don't want to make it bigger than what it is, but what do you make of Al Golden's comments literally a couple of days before Natty?
Leonard Moore also had a comment about this. It's just a very similar vein. And also credit to Alex for pushing us to talk about this, because it's a very compelling storyline. It's one of the most unique circumstances. Like, when the hell can we think back to a championship game, a playoff caliber game, where something as specific as what type of defensive game plan is a team going to deploy? That doesn't happen often. It's really important for the outcome here. I do not believe, Blake, that this is as black and white as them saying that they're going to stick to their defensive philosophies and that they're just going to go out there and do that. Marcus Freeman also said this week, not many teams are successful just sitting in man coverage versus these receivers. We'll obviously have to mix some things up and come out with a great plan to try to limit what they do in the passing game. You're not going to be able to stop the receivers totally. They're a talented bunch. We'll come up with a plan and be able to adapt and adjust based off of what's going on in the game. So I think that Al Golden, Leonard Moore, the entire team is smart enough to know they're not tipping their hand here. They're not going to just outwardly and blurt out, we're going to go man-to-man. That's what's going to happen. Marcus Freeman's a little bit more telling of the approach. They're going to adjust and be able to play a balanced look and be able to shift their focus towards what's working and what's not working. They have the talent to do so. They're probably going to give extra attention to Jeremiah Smith. They're not going to sit here at these press conferences and say, we're going to double Jeremiah Smith. They're just not going to say that. They don't want to tip that hand. What they said, I thought, was pretty benign. I thought it was pretty base layer of how you're going to answer the question of, what are you planning to do against an opponent? I'd be shocked if they went one-on-one man coverage like they did against Penn State, like they did against Georgia, against a team like Ohio State that has won and has been successful by opening up, by throwing the ball. This is the best passing offense that they've seen all year. I would be freaking shocked, even with these comments, if they went one-on-one on the outside without some sort of help.
Okay, let me just ask you this before I get going here. What happens if they actually do that? What happens if what he said is
it'll probably be a long day, but if there's a team that can go man-to-man against Ohio State and at least get some stops, I'm not going to put myself on record in saying that Notre Dame would just completely shut them down, because I'd be out of my mind to say that against a receiving core that good. But if there's a defense to get stops in those situations, maybe generate a turnover, it would be Notre Dame, because Leonard Moore and Christian Gray are tall, long press man corners. They're one of the few teams in the country that actually have the personnel to run the defense that they're trying to run.
There are a couple of positives that I do like, and you hit on one of them about what Golden said. But listen, I don't think that you can go into this game doing what you do. Like, look, everything's got to be thrown at the wall here, Joseph. And I call you by your biblical name. Like, you got to throw everything at them, and you got to throw everything at them early. Like, I don't think telling if it is what you do, okay, and you don't change up much from what you basically do. And I agree with you. I do think that they're going to shade dudes and try to do different things with Jeremiah Smith. I don't think Marcus Freeman and Al Golden are that stupid. I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
However, I think it might be a wrong game plan if you just do what you do. Meaning, brother, we've seen Will Howard get flustered under pressure all the time. And I don't know if you can get home at 4. I think that there will be moments that you can, and I'm not saying that you can at all. It's not what I'm trying to say. I think you got to heat him up. Like, I think you got to go the opposite approach. What did Texas do, Joe, in the second half that started shrinking that game for Ohio State? So, I mean, they would shade a safety over to Jeremiah Smith. You're right, they would. What did they do everywhere else? They went bump and run man-to-man. And he said, you know what, brother, we are coming. Anthony Hill is going downhill, pun intended. And it flustered him. I could say the same about Michigan. I could say the same about Nebraska. I could say the same about that second half against Oregon in game 1, right? Like, I mean, why Oregon changed their game plan is absolutely insane to me. But I think it's twofold here. I agree with what he's saying, and I understand, and I agree with you. I don't think that they're tipping their hand at all of what they're going to do.
Yeah.
But there is something in the back of my mind that's saying, listen, the game plan's out here, big dog. Like, this team has gotten clipped twice. And in both times, Will Howard was getting pressured immensely. They almost got clipped a third time a week ago, or they were in a battle, okay? And you have Texas. What did they do in the second half? They started heating him up. I just don't know if you can get home with 4 regularly enough to where you can't start sending the heat. And the reason I say that, Joe, I'm going to talk about this on the postgame. God forbid they win. Will Howard in the pocket with no pressure is a completely different dude like every other quarterback in the country. He's just got dudes that he can throw the ball to, which makes it so much better. I agree, and I wouldn't say that Notre Dame needs to overreact and do anything different, but this is a different beast that you try to slay here, right? And so I understand what he's saying. I agree with you that they're going to do a lot. Look, I would try to implement what Texas did, if I'm being honest, and I don't know if that's typical Notre Dame. I really don't, brother. Like, how many times did we came in here in the post game? Or not post game, but I mean, our instant reaction to Texas and Ohio State. What did we say? Like, hey, man, that Texas front seven just absolutely, they were sending pressure all night. I think you got to do something similar, man. I really do. The final thing I would say to this, if you do go majority of the game bump and run but just man to coverage or quarters, which turns to man-to-man past 10 yards, better be ready to go, man. That's all I'm going to – like, you got to have a really good performance, right? Like, and that's not saying anything wrong about Notre Dame. Everybody in the country, if that would be their game plan versus this team, would have to do something really well to be able to slow them down over and over and over again.
Well, so a couple of things. One, I mean, saying that they need to have a really good performance, there's nothing off about that because there's a lot of truth to this. Notre Dame's success through this playoff run has been trusting in their outside corners and then playing their best games. They have played at an unreal level for this playoff run, the way that they've been able to lock down receivers. They're not going to be able to do that to the same degree against Emeka Egbuka and Jeremiah Smith and Cardinal Tate. They're just not going to be able to because they're the most talented receivers that they have seen all year. But them getting their best performance, yeah, that's so important. You can't come out there with any hesitation or any doubt in your mind. Otherwise, somebody like Jeremiah Smith is going to cook you. But I think that listening to Al Golden, listening to Leonard Moore, and listening to Marcus Freeman talk, it sounds like what you're talking about here. I think that's what Notre Dame's philosophy is going to be. And them knowing what they're saying here is them knowing that they can go man coverage on the outside means that they can send pressure. Not that they're just going to load up the box, but they're actually going to be firing pressure. I think we need to go as far as to say here that Ohio State needs to be prepared for what's going to be thrown at them because Notre Dame has really fast athletic linebackers. They have, and this is not a hot take at all to say because go listen to any coach talk about this Notre Dame linebacker room. I believe Kirby Smart even said that it is an SEC caliber linebacker room. They have some of the most athletic linebackers in the country. They're going to send them. They're going to send them fast. They're going to send them from every angle. Will Howard and a banged up Ohio State offensive line needs to be prepared for that. That is something that I think gets missed with this. And the thing that bugs me so much in preparation for this game, this assumption that Ohio State's just going to kick the shit out of them because they're this loaded team We need to remind ourselves that Notre Dame still has athletes and they have premier players at certain positions.
Okay,
But Ohio State doesn't.
Is anybody really out there that has a pulse in college football saying
yes,
beat the shit out of them?
Yes, I've seen it on Twitter all week.
Okay, well, I haven't seen it. Let me counteract what you just said by one thing. I think Ohio State got a little overwhelmed in moments when Texas started sending pressure. I don't think that happens again. Meaning, I do think that when you have a 10-day window and you have a game plan like that, okay, I do think that they're going to test the edge early in the passing game from the running back perspective. Joe, I got to be real with you. If I'm Ohio State coming out in the first drive, I'm literally throwing the ball to Henderson and Judkins out of the backfield and making those linebackers that you talked about, I am making them stop me. Now, one thing that we talked about, you had said in the running game that Notre Dame didn't allow a rush past 13 yards. That is correct. But they did allow passes more than 13 yards. There's actually, I think, 16 yards to Nick Singleton. Or no, the 20-yard.
It was 20. I was going to say, the Patriot Allen had a 20-yard rush. Right. Still, they didn't allow long rushing touchdowns.
They didn't right. But they did allow a lot of these dink and dunk passes by Drew Aller 10 days ago they were very productive. I mean, the first drive, they moved up and down the field, and that offensive line was clanging and banging up front. It's going to be interesting to see I think it's very interesting to see for me, regardless of what Al Golden's comments, Marcus Freeman's comments are, none of that shit really matters. I'm really interested to see how they try to execute this because I do think that we saw something 10 days ago that Ohio State can replicate. I think the difference is that they have the better weapons to be able to execute. I thought Kotelnicki, I'm going to call it like I said, I think Kotelnicki had a great game plan. Mm-hmm. I don't think that he had the quarterback or the wide receiver core that can execute that game plan the way that Ohio State can. So we shall see. Whew. I'm telling you, man, I am so pumped up for this game. I really am because I think the chess match that you have coaching staff v. coaching staff will be very telling and very interesting. Yeah. Last thing that I would say on this. Chip Kelly was also interviewed, and his comments didn't get the pub that Al Golden's did.
You talking about the Oregon comments that he made?
I mean, I was going to leave that alone, but yes, y'all can go look at it. There's a comment in which when Chip Kelly was interviewed, he said this. He said, being here has made me love football more. Dude, here's – well, no. I think what he's saying is that Chip is a guy – this was the best move for him. And, Joe, when you and I both know, we're on the air, what, 15 –
a lot.
20 hours a week at minimum, okay? And prepping for more than that, when you go to a podium and a microphone's in front of your face and you let something like that out, my man's just having fun. And it's interesting. I'm glad to see that because, man, NIL and the portal era, man, I'm sure it drains you. And I don't know that UCLA was really helping him enough to be able to defend what was ultimately coming. So, well, that's what she said too. But
that was one thing that we talked about in the offseason when he took this job is that you and I speculated purely this is what he wants to do. He's going to be really happy just being able to draw up and scheme up plays and be the mad genius that he is, preparing to attack opposing defenses. That's what his livelihood's going to be. The version of the sport of now having to deal with all these other angles is not what Chip Kelly is. And also, even before he didn't like recruiting, really.
It feels to me, it feels Monty Kiffin-ish, but on the offensive end.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times do you think Monty Kiffin could have been a head coach? I mean, the Tampa 2, I mean, he created an entire defense that 95% of teams run every week. I mean, what are we talking about? That it is interesting to hear comments like that. The Oregon one was crazy, but it was a little petty shot, whatever. But it comes to a point where I think you could see more of this. I think Chip is only the beginning.
Right. No, I think that
institutions, you better start investing into your head coaches. Like, so for an example,
well, support systems for your head coaches.
Bingo. And listen, we had a conversation about this on Wednesday, the end of the show, and to kind of not make an argument or anything entertaining out of this, what Brady Quinn said. I mean, like sometimes institutions have to get and this isn't a shot at Notre Dame, I swear to God, but like LSU just went through it themselves. Institutions have got to have the understanding that when you invest into a head coach, it's not what the contract you're paying him. It's the $20 million roster that you gotta come after that. I'm telling you right now. I spoke to people at Mississippi State this weekend. I've spoken to people at LSU. These rosters right now, all of them are going to be over $10 million in TV revenue and NIL. You can't in the P4, you can't get away without a roster being that close.
No. And the infrastructure is also incredibly important, and it's going to be something that's so important for the shape of the sport going forward. Jeff Hafley, who left to take the Packers DC job, is another example of this, and Gus Malzahn, who left to take an OC job. Like, there's mounting
Gus
and mounting.
Literally just did it.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? I'm glad you brought that up. That's why you're a great co-host to me. Okay. Well, I mean that you complete me, Jerry Maguire.
All right.
That's what she said. But case in point, right? Like case in point. Why does Gus leave a head coach of a P4 job? Joe, he wins the conference. He's going to the playoffs.
Yeah.